Hi, I'm Bridget Hartman DeCenzo. Welcome to Learning Thursdays. A goal of Learning Thursdays is to support and help advance the educational and professional competency development of the treatment, prevention, and recovery workforce. A competency being comprised of the knowledge, skills, and attitudes relative to a task. In part, we do this by offering monthly presentations that highlight content and topic areas that are current and relevant. We have a very important presentation for you today entitled Immediate Actions Following the Discovery of a Reportable Incident. And I'm pleased to introduce our presenters, Rob Kent, OASIS General Counsel, and Randall Holloway from the Justice Center for the Protection of People with Special Needs. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us at learningthurs@oasis.ny.gov. And now, I will hand over the presentation to Rob Kent.
Hello and welcome to the New York State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services in-service training for service providers on actions that should be taken by site administrators and clinicians immediately upon learning of the report of a reportable incident. My name is Robert Kent. I'm the General Counsel to the New York State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services.
And I'm Randall Holloway. I'm the State Oversight Agency Training Coordinator for the Justice Center's Office of Incident Reporting and Investigations. Throughout this training, we'll be referring to these two agencies as OASIS and the Justice Center.
Today we will be speaking with you about your responsibilities when responding to an initial discovery of a reportable incident or when you are first informed about the report of a reportable incident. We will discuss initial actions which should be taken to ensure the safety of patients, staff, and others, how one should go about collecting accurate and complete information about what was reported to have occurred, methods for initially evaluating the substance of a complaint, steps that should be taken to protect the scene of a serious incident when that incident has just occurred, how and when one should go about collecting, preserving, and documenting evidence relevant to a significant incident review or to an investigation which may be carried out by the police or the Justice Center, and requirements for the internal and external reporting of incidents. We want you to be well prepared to overcome the challenges present in appropriately responding to incidents occurring at your program, because proper incident responses enhance the safety for our patients and contribute to the success of our efforts to provide effective treatment. The types of incidents which require reporting to the Justice Center and OASIS include serious misconduct by staff members, acts by patients which would be considered abuse if done by staff, self-harmful acts by patients, and certain accidents and injuries. Consequently, there may be many incidents your program or an outside entity will be required to review or investigate. Responsible parties at each program site must be able to respond immediately, regardless of the time of the incident occurred or the report of an incident was received, to ensure that patients are safe and cared for, and at times to ensure that important information regarding the incident is not lost. While some reports you receive may lead to immediate request for emergency assistance and responses by local law enforcement, not every event will elicit or merit such a response. It may not be possible for trained agency significant incident reviewers to respond immediately to every incident, and site administrators must be able to undertake appropriate actions in order to meet the requirements of OASIS's Part 836 regulations. At the conclusion of this training, you should understand the terminology used to describe the duties of supervisory staff who initiate the response to an incident. You should also be prepared to carry out necessary initial tasks at the scene of an incident, particularly when the incident has just occurred. As you respond to an incident location, you'll be able to effectively assess the site and understand what needs to be protected and collected. You will also be able to properly protect the scene of an incident, or alternatively be able to document, collect, and preserve evidence relevant to any investigation which may follow. Finally, you will be able to identify what information needs to be included in your site manager's incident report and understand why your report is so important to your program and to outside investigators.
Let's look at a few of the important terms and tasks that you'll need to be able to accurately identify when responding to a new incident. These include the relevant definitions of respond, assess, identify, and preserve, as well as preliminary, inquiry, and process. We will also identify specific tasks which need to be completed when responding to an incident. Process is a particular method or system for accomplishing a task or specific goal. The process moves one forward from one point to another on the way to completion. Preliminary can be simply defined as either preparatory or introductory, depending on the identified preliminary task. And inquiry is a systematic examination or search to uncover relevant information to assist in determining, in this case, if an incident is reportable and what immediate actions the provider need take.
Providers who are certified, licensed, or funded by New York State OASIS must follow our Part 836 regulations. Specific guidance on the Part 836 regulations can be found on the OASIS website. The guidance that is also found on our website provides further clarification specific to incident reporting in several areas, and I encourage you to go to that website for further information. OASIS provider mandated reporters can find additional information on the New York State Justice Center website and the OASIS website. The Justice Center resources for mandated reporters provide recorded trainings for custodians and human service professionals for reporting requirements. Also provides examples of recorded calls and other guidance documents for reporting requirements. The OASIS Justice Center website provides information specific to providers in all areas required, including criminal background checks, incident reporting, the self-exclusion list. We have FAQs and oversight and monitoring information and forms. CASAC, or Credentialed Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Counselor complaints, should be completed by the provider in cases where a Justice Center call is made related to that CASAC. Providers should contact the OASIS credentialing at 800-482-9564 and select option 5. They can speak with someone and request a form to file an official complaint.
The acronym PAIR, or PAIR, stands for Preserve, Assess, Identify, and Respond, and is offered to help you remember the discrete tasks required to properly respond to a newly discovered incident. You will be required to preserve important evidence that might otherwise become tainted, lost, or destroyed either intentionally or accidentally during the time between your notification about the incident and the initiation of a formal investigation. You will be expected to assess the situation, to understand what information is needed to determine the actions that must immediately occur to ensure everyone is safe. Whether there needs to be a 911 call for medical or police assistance, summoning additional staff, sealing off a room, or perhaps separating individuals from one another. You must identify other needed immediate actions and also attempt to identify any and all witnesses to the incident and any evidence which may exist that will help investigators understand what actually occurred. And you must remember to document what potentially valuable information you discover. Finally, you must respond appropriately to make certain those immediate actions are properly carried out, ensuring the completion of prompt medical attention, 911 calls, and required internal and external reports of the incident. The initial response to an incident includes those actions that are carried out from the time the report of an incident is received, or the time the incident is personally discovered by the clinician or site administrator until nothing of import regarding the incident can be immediately accomplished. Or alternately, it becomes clear that any further action should be left to law enforcement. While there are constants in the types of preliminary information you will need to acquire, the circumstances of incidents vary, as will the amount and types of information available. You will need to adapt your plan for preliminary actions to the specifics of the incident and remain flexible as information is revealed. Your knowledge of how your program operates is valuable in this effort, as you may be the only person carrying out these initial steps, and you can expect to be held responsible for your performance. You know that in most investigations, the majority of valuable information is uncovered during the initial response to the incident, and this information greatly assists the person who will eventually be conducting investigative interviews. A well-performed preliminary inquiry will help determine if the report has any validity, and should a full review or investigation be needed, the preliminary inquiry will help with the identification and prioritization of investigative tasks. Your success in these initial efforts may be a determining factor in whether the truth of the matter is ever revealed. Not every report of an incident is accurate or even necessarily truthful. Ultimately, the truth of the matter may turn out to be much less or much worse than what was initially reported. Your first task is to take steps to ensure the safety of all involved. In any instance when the reported event has recently occurred, you must go to the scene of the incident immediately, as long as you are not already attending to the needs of the victim at another location. Upon arrival, quickly but carefully assess the scene, checking for indications of continued crisis or the potential for additional dangerous incidents. Look around the area where the incident reportedly occurred. Make note of who is present, where exactly they are located, and what they're currently doing. Note objects that appear out of place or overturned. Are there other indications that individuals have been in an altercation, such as broken items or torn clothing or signs of injury? Is there anything at the location that could present a continued danger to patients or staff?
Your first action should be to de-escalate any crisis situation, separating anyone who is aggressive or threatening from all potential victims. You may need the assistance of additional staff, and you should take action to tend to the medical needs of anyone who might have suffered an injury. After those vital steps are completed, you can begin to locate and protect, or perhaps collect any physical evidence related to the incident, collect or copy any documents that could help explain what occurred and who was responsible for an important task. It is always preferable to take physical possession of the original document. You should also view any video of the evidence and make arrangements to preserve a copy of the video, photo, or audio recording of the incident. If you have not already done so, you should take this opportunity to briefly interview the person who initially reported the incident, and also speak with the reported victim or victims and any potential witnesses who are present. If you have been presented with information about interactions occurring between staff and patients on social media, it is important to preserve the evidence. This can be done multiple ways, but if possible, ask the victim for usernames and passwords in order to access the information so that it can be saved. Facebook messages can only be subpoenaed for a criminal investigation. However, there are multiple ways to print all the Facebook direct messaging that has occurred. You can refer to this link for multiple ways to access information for printing. In the case of text messages, there is a way to email them to an address for preservation. This can also be done by syncing the phone with a computer. Pictures can also be emailed for preservation. It is very important to get both participants' phone numbers and carriers, if known, as those records can be subpoenaed and will show the number of contacts between the parties and when they occurred. As soon as you have any reason to believe that a crime has been committed, you are required to notify local police. Unless the police inform you that no officer can presently come to the program, keep all witnesses and involved parties present at the program until police arrive. Hold off on doing any interviews and attempt to keep everyone calm. Keep witnesses separate from one another and victims separate from anyone who might attempt to influence their reporting of what occurred. Instruct staff to not discuss the incident verbally via text messages or over social media. Witnesses may separately occupy their time completing a detailed incident report or other program documentation. If a staff member or any involved party is making threats or appears aggressive, it may be safer to escort the person from the program. If you do so, remember to write down the address and contact numbers for that individual and if possible, make note of their means of transportation, such as the make, model, and license plate of their vehicle.
As the person responsible for managing the initial response to the incident, you reasonably need to learn from the reporter and perhaps others enough about what occurred to make appropriate decisions regarding how to respond and who to notify. While there are people you need to speak with, you must understand that you do not yet know how the incident will be classified. If it will be investigated by the police, the Justice Center, or reviewed as a significant incident by another person from your agency. You should not assume the role of an investigator, and you need to understand that repeated interviews or improperly conducted interviews can impede the ability of investigators to uncover accurate findings and assure accountability for responsible parties. Your goal is to gather available information without making accusations or asking leading or forced choice questions. If you are the first person to learn of the incident, you should ask the reporter to tell you everything he or she can recall about what happened immediately before, during, and after the event. Explain that you want to understand what happened, and ask that he or she include even seemingly unimportant details. If the reporter was the victim or witnessed the event, ask this person to list all of the other people present and describe where they were located and what each was doing. Take detailed notes of what they tell you. If the report is about an incident that happened sometime in the past, however, and the reporter was the victim, this should complete your interview expectations. Any further interviews will be completed by the assigned investigator. Review those notes and carefully document what you learned in an incident report. Allegations made by a patient should not be discussed in clinical notes available to other staff, and the incident report should also be kept secure. Instruct the reporter not to discuss the incident with others, accepting, of course, that they must cooperate with the police, any assigned investigator, or an authorized administrator at your agency. It's advisable to record interviews with victims and recipient witnesses, as they may leave the program and not be available for later interviews. These guidelines apply to any initial witness interviews. Make sure that staff witnesses create incident reports independently and that you personally collect and retain those reports. There are additional considerations when interviewing the alleged victim, whether that patient reported the incident to you or somebody else did. If the victim was not the reporter, you should make an attempt to ask the victim about what has happened to him or her, offering as little specific information as possible to identify the event about which you wish to speak, and seeking as much specific information as the victim is willing to freely offer. You may inquire how the patient felt during the incident and ask how they're doing now. Be sympathetic, but refrain from reacting in an overtly emotional manner or expressing your own opinions about the matter. Do not proceed if the victim appears to be overwhelmed by the conversation or is confused. If you need help understanding the victim, only proceed if you are absolutely certain that the facilitator or the translator was not involved in the incident and has no close connection to any involved party. Instruct the translator to translate exactly what you and the victim say, adding nothing and leaving nothing out. Remember to maintain eye contact and speak with the victim and not the translator. It is appropriate to reassure the victim that you are taking steps to make sure he or she is safe now. Let the victim know that there are notifications you are required to make and that there are people who can help. Identify emotional and clinical supports for the victim and remind him or her who to go to for support. In initial conversations with victims, try to avoid any of the following behaviors. Appearing confused or resentful or frustrated may lead the victim to avoid speaking with you. Don't pressure the victim for details or ask leading questions when attempting to attain additional information. Minimizing the seriousness of the situation while speaking with the victim, or conversely, overreacting to what is being reported, may unintentionally cause the victim to stop sharing information due to fear or embarrassment. Saying negative or judgmental things about anyone involved should be avoided at this early stage. And avoid presenting yourself in a hardened, cynical, or mistrusting way should that person not fit your vision of a stereotypical victim.
When speaking with a victim who is a patient, it is very important to get multiple types of contact information. The patient may very well be discharged by the time the investigation is finished and/or a hearing is scheduled, so it is important to be able to locate the patient, as they are also a witness, obviously. Also, it is encouraged to allow patient victim to make a recorded statement or capture their story, as they may not appear at the hearing. Normally, investigators put off interviewing a subject until the evidence has been carefully assessed and other parties thoroughly interviewed. There are circumstances, however, when it is appropriate to briefly interview a staff member who has been accused of misconduct. For example, if the victim and subject were the only parties present for the incident, it may be valuable to hear the subject's perspective about what happened before and during the incident, or what motivation the alleged victim has to fabricate a report. It could also be important to hear from the potential subject if the alleged victim's report was vague, or if the victim appeared confused or impaired. While you will undoubtedly have to report the allegation, these additional details could help others properly categorize the report. If there is no cause to immediately escort the accused from the program, he or she should be also directed to fill out a report detailing everything that occurred. You will be expected to ensure that this report or that this individual has no contact with the victim until the matter has been reported and resolved. The subject should also be directed not to speak or otherwise communicate with coworkers about the incident. And you must be careful not to express any judgment regarding what allegedly occurred. It is not within your role to interrogate the subject about the incident or otherwise engage him or her in an argument about what reportedly occurred. Your duties are set forth in agency policies, which will allow little latitude in how you must respond and should permit you to proceed dispassionately in carrying out your duties. Any and all contact info regarding cell phone numbers, social media usernames, and email addresses, if possible, should be collected. Now let's move on to discuss basic strategies and techniques for the protection, collection, preservation, and documentation of evidence. Certainly you are aware that there are many incidents that occur at your program having nothing to do with a crime. Because accidents and other incidents reflecting potential problems with supervision or treatment will nonetheless need to be reviewed or investigated, it is important for all clinicians and site administrators to understand how and when to collect evidence relevant to an incident.
In order for evidence of a crime to be admissible in court, prosecutors must be able to prove the evidence was collected from the scene of the incident, was untainted during the collection process, and was protected up until and during its professional assessment. Some law enforcement personnel are certified as evidence collection specialists to better assure success. They are specially trained to collect samples of blood and other bodily fluids at the scene of a crime, to properly safeguard trace evidence found on sheets, clothing, or other surfaces, and to collect other evidence such as hair and fingerprints, which would likely be lost when the scene of the incident is cleaned up. Legal standards for the admissibility of such evidence make it vital that you keep everyone away from the scene of an apparent crime, including yourself. If you are the first responsible individual to respond to the scene and it appears that a crime may have been committed, the best course of action is to ensure that no one enters the area until it has been processed and cleared by the police. Law enforcement agencies teach officers to remember vital evidence collection tasks by reminding them of the 7 S's of crime scene processing, which for our purposes is more accurately presented as incident scene processing. We can initially summarize them as follows. First, secure the evidence by making sure all individuals at the scene are safe and preserving that evidence. Separate all witnesses. Not allowing witnesses to talk to one another prevents collusion and helps prevent some witnesses' beliefs regarding what occurred from swaying the recollections of other witnesses' observations. Scan the scene. Carefully look over the area of the incident in order to determine the location or locations where important events occurred and the items that may have been involved during the incident. See the scene. See the scene of the incident as a whole. Take photos of the scene from different directions and then take photos of evidence from close up. Sketch the scene. In instances when it's not possible to contain the entire incident scene in one photograph, it can be very helpful for investigators and reviewers to have a detailed and accurate sketch of the incident scene. It is also helpful to have important items of evidence included in the sketch, measured from 2 immovable points within the room. Search for evidence. Since evidence is not always easily observable, it can be valuable for the first responder, in this case you, to conduct a methodical, patterned search of the area in order to make sure nothing was missed. Secure and collect evidence. All the evidence found must be properly packaged, sealed, and labeled. Now let's go over more specific techniques for meeting these goals. You may have encountered a situation where an incident did not turn out to be as minor or perhaps as serious as was first reported, and the review or investigation took a much different turn as evidence was revealed regarding what truly occurred. In an instance where the initial report of an incident was relatively minor or vague, the police may not have been called or may have informed the provider that an in-person response would be delayed. In the very rare occasions when the location of the incident cannot be sealed off from public use, it may fall upon you to scan and search the scene and collect any relevant physical evidence. You want to start by photographing the entire area from multiple directions in order to best preserve the entirety of the scene, and also photograph from a closer perspective any spills or broken items or other physical indicators of what occurred during the incident. Additionally, you or another party should photograph injuries to any party or the relevant lack of injury. Try to preserve privacy to the extent possible by not exposing intimate areas of a person's body. Your program likely has disposable gloves available for cleaning or for medical care. Put on a fresh pair of those gloves and in separate paper bags, place any sheet, item of clothing, towel, or other item which you believe may have value as evidence. Also, separately bag anything which may have been used as a weapon by anybody. Broken glass or other sharp debris should be swept up and placed in a clean, puncture-resistant container to make sure nobody gets hurt. Each bag should be folded closed as soon as an item is placed inside of it. The bag should be taped closed, and with a permanent marker you should sign your name across the bag and the tape, along with the date and time and a consecutive number matching your evidence log. That separate evidence log should list each item collected with a description of the item and the date and time collected. All the evidence and the log sheet must be kept in your possession until they can be locked in a location to which only you have access, or until the evidence is turned over to the police, to the Justice Center, or the responsible administrator or investigator at your agency. We can't overstate the potential value of video files and photographs in the investigation of abuse, neglect, and significant incidents. Even in instances when the alleged incident isn't directly captured, this demonstrative evidence can inform us regarding who came and went from the scene and when they were present. It's important for you to learn if your program has surveillance cameras in place, where they are all located, and if they record video to a memory file or to videotape. It's also worth knowing how long video is retained in memory and who has access to storage files. This is because you will be expected to have ensured that video evidence was preserved and secured. If the reported incident happened well in the past, it may not be reasonable to expect that video files were automatically retained within the recording system. But law enforcement and other investigators will not welcome you telling them that video evidence of a recent incident was not promptly preserved and has since been recorded over. If other parties have taken photos or recorded conversations on their own personal devices, it is appropriate for you to obtain copies of that evidence in order to ensure that they are safely preserved and not subsequently edited or modified. In those instances where you are responding to an incident that reportedly just occurred, it may fall to you to preserve a record of the scene of that incident before the inevitable changes that occur with the passage of time. Photographs can be a very effective method for collecting demonstrative evidence of the scene, which, if done correctly, will greatly assist investigators and other reviewers to understand the physical locale and how persons and objects relate to one another in the context of where the incident occurred. All photographs of the scene should be taken before anyone touches or moves any of the physical evidence. After familiarizing yourself with the proper use of your camera, make sure to check the quality of each digital image before moving on. You or an associate should descriptively log each photograph as they are being taken. In order to thoroughly document the incident scene, your photographs should include the following: a series of photos of the entire area with overlapping fields of view that captures ultimately a 360-degree view of the entire incident scene. Long shots of the incident scene, if possible, that document its location in relation to the general area, particularly if the incident occurred outdoors. Views of the location or locations of the incident from the perspectives of each person who is identified as a non-involved witness. This will help investigators determine how much of the incident each witness would have been able to observe and how clearly they would have been able to see it from that reported distance. Close-ups of anything damaged or broken during the incident and anything that appears or was reported to have been used as a weapon, photographs of clothing or other items that would appear to have been damaged during an altercation, and longer shots and close-ups of injury suffered by any involved party. Hopefully using a grayscale ruler whenever possible to show the length and width of that injury. Always remember to preserve the privacy of people's intimate areas. If it is ever necessary to photograph those parts of the body, it will be done by hospital medical staff at the direction of local law enforcement. Records created in the regular course of business are generally considered to be credible representations of what occurred at the facility, the substance and timeliness of staff training, and how individuals were assigned to be responsible for specific tasks. The content of records which remain available to staff becomes less reliable if they are not taken into custody promptly upon the discovery of the incident, due to the risk of someone destroying or improperly altering records in order to conceal their own misconduct. Depending on the substance of the report to which you are responding, vital documents you need to collect or, if necessary, make copies of include the following: occurrence and incident reports for the time period in question, as well as progress notes, unit logs, and staffing assignment sheets, periodic location and activity check sheets if they're documented at your program. As already discussed, contact information for all involved patients in case patients are removed from the program or leave on their own. Staff attendance records and sign-in sheets. Staff break schedules, along with any notes that detail if and when breaks were actually taken. Medication administration records. Agency vehicle transportation logs, as well as purchase and gas receipts. Once again, social media postings relative to the incident. And if a formal investigation is eventually needed, copies of relevant staff training records will then be collected. Not all reported incidents merit medical or nursing assessment, but there are certainly times when an evaluation is needed to ensure welfare. After accidents, fights, or reported assaults, it's your duty to make sure, or make every effort in any case, to ensure that any party who could have been injured is professionally assessed. The medical information obtained during assessment and treatment is important to your agency and to any investigation subsequently carried out. Therefore, you or a trusted colleague should accompany the recipient of services to the medical provider to ensure that treatment staff understand the substance and details regarding what occurred during the incident, are aware of any illness or disabling conditions that might be relevant to the assessment and treatment of that patient. And should medical staff discuss the incident with the person receiving services, the caregiver documents the substance of that conversation in the medical record or on a consultation form, or you keep careful notes on what everyone said during that patient interview. In addition to a discussion regarding what happened to the patient, the medical examination may reveal important evidence to support or refute what was alleged to have occurred. Staff accompanying a recipient to the nursing office, the ER, or to urgent care must ensure that clinical findings are documented with adequate detail and include a detailed description and measurement of bruises, abrasions, or other injuries. If not already discussed, you should ask about the need for follow-up medical care or additional assessments and assure that those instructions are documented in a patient instructions or discharge form. And if the clinician is able to determine the cause of an injury or is willing to offer an opinion regarding whether injuries are consistent or inconsistent with the reported incident, that assessment should also be documented by the clinician.
After following these guidelines for immediate actions to respond to a report of a reportable incident, you should be well equipped to complete incident reporting requirements. Your agency or facility policy may require you to report the information you've learned to administrators prior to making external notifications, which is acceptable so long as you do not delay emergency calls for police or medical assistance. These internal notifications provide an opportunity for you to discuss what you've learned about the incident so far, and if the incident has not yet been externally reported, whether there is a reasonable cause to suspect that a reportable incident has actually occurred. Remember, OASIS regulations require that reasonable suspicion of criminal conduct involving recipients of services be reported to the police immediately. In addition to the report you will make to the Vulnerable Persons Central Registry. And since the Justice Center coordinates its investigations with local law enforcement, you are expected to get the names and contact information for any responding law enforcement personnel, along with the incident or case number from any report the police complete.
As you probably know, as the responsible supervisor learning of a new report of a reportable incident, you also have an obligation to report the incident to the Justice Center's Vulnerable Persons Central Register, or VPCR. This report can be made through a phone call to the VPCR toll-free number, which is listed here, by submitting a web form over the internet or via the mobile application, which are available through this link within the Justice Center website. Either before or after contacting the Justice Center, you should prepare an incident report detailing all the relevant information gathered during your initial response to the incident. This information will assist during your contact with the Justice Center and will be of great value to anyone assigned to formally investigate the incident. The type of information that should be included in any report may include the names, dates of birth, and home addresses of all victims and other patients involved in the incident. The names and addresses of any victim's personal representatives, should the victims be patients under the age of 18 who do not object to such notification. You will need to describe the address of the program and the location of the incident. The date and time that the incident occurred and when it was first reported to you. The names, along with dates of birth and home addresses, if possible, of any subjects of and other potential patient victims. Summarize the medical assessments provided to all parties and relevant findings from those assessments. You may want to add information regarding medical conditions or disabilities that are relevant to assessing the risk of physical or emotional injury to involved parties. Your report should summarize the actions you carried out during the initial response, list all of the identified relevant evidence, and the steps you took to preserve and collect that evidence. Your report should provide a concise summary of information relevant to the incident provided by all parties, and the report must document all internal and external notifications, including those to law enforcement. Be careful to ensure your report only details factual information, what you saw, what you were told, and information contained in documents you collected. It's not your role to speculate on what actually occurred or express judgment regarding the character or credibility of any involved party. The incident report, created shortly after the initial report of an incident, is not the time or place to record such opinions.
Congratulations on completing this webinar on immediate actions to take following the discovery of a reportable incident. And please accept our thanks for your determined efforts to serve and protect the patients in your care. Know that we rely on your help to identify and report incidents within your program and appreciate all you do and will do to preserve and secure the evidence that ensures all New Yorkers receive equal access to justice, regardless of illness or disability. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob and Randall, for your time and your expertise today. We welcome your feedback. It lets us know if we are meeting the educational goals and expectations of the field. Once you have viewed the presentation in its entirety, please follow steps 1, 2, and 3 to access the SurveyMonkey link. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.